Pitchers and catchers report in just a few days for your Washington Nationals. So let's run through a list of some of the top questions that we have entering the 2025 season.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And while you're at it, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast. And I mean wherever. Apple, Spotify, and of course over on YouTube as well for the video version of the Locked On Nationals podcast. Later on in today's program, when does baseball season start for you? Like, yesterday was the Super Bowl, and the Eagles won, by the way. I hate Philadelphia. You probably hate Philadelphia. We all hate Philly. So it sucks to see them win the Super Bowl. But when does baseball season start for you? I've got my answer for that, because we are so damn close. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on in today's program. But we get into it with the first two segments. What are the biggest questions surrounding the Nats pitchers and catchers reporting in 2025? And we've got questions, but we've also got answers. So we'll get into it after we tell you about today's sponsor, which is FanDuel. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started with some of the biggest questions surrounding the Nats pitchers and catchers reporting in just a few days. And the number one question for me is, who will be the top dog in this rotation? Who will be your Max Scherzer moving forward? The obvious answer right now is Mackenzie Gore. But here's the thing. Is he ready to take that next step up? Is he ready to be that guy that the Nationals can rely on every 5 days? And is he ready to take that next step? Mackenzie Gore has been really good over the last few seasons. He has taken a step up each of the last 2 years. But is he going to be that guy where, again, I ask this question a lot. If you're in Game 7 of the World Series, who do you want taking the mound from this team? Amongst the 5 or 6 guys that you have right now, it's going to be Mackenzie Gore at this point. But is he really going to be the ace of this rotation? If you look back into this offseason, one of my number one needs was go get your Max Scherzer. Go get a Corbin Burns, or go sign Max Fried, or someone who has been a reliable veteran piece, and also someone who can take the reins of being the ace of this staff. We have not had that since Max Scherzer in 2021. But Mackenzie Gore, as we sit here today, a former top 10 prospect, a top 5 pick in the MLB draft back in 2017, and it seems as if he could be ready to take those steps up and be that top guy in this rotation. But also, is that necessarily a good plan for the Nationals? Is that really the plan that they want to go in? Is this what they see in the future? Like, let's say it's 2026. The Nationals are in the postseason. Is Mackenzie Gore going to be the ace? Is he going to be the guy that the Nationals go in and say he's going to be the guy for us moving forward, and he's going to be the one to push this team into the postseason? It seems as if the Nationals believe in that at this point in time. But are we ready for Mackenzie Gore to be the ace of this team? Who knows at this point? So to answer that question, I do think it's going to be Mackenzie Gore. But overall, I would have liked to see them do something, hopefully this upcoming offseason, make a trade at the deadline, or stick with Mackenzie Gore and see what he's got. Because if there is anyone who has Cy Young potential on this team, it's probably Mackenzie Gore. Question number 2. For a catcher, will Keibert Ruiz finally be that franchise catcher? And this is a tricky question, if we're just being honest. Keibert Ruiz, the prospect of him and the vision of what we thought Ruiz would be is a lot better than the actual version of Keibert Ruiz at this point. Keibert has really declined over the last few seasons. And ever since getting that extension prior to 2023, he has been good, but he's been pretty replaceable overall. Again, looking back into last year, he batted .229 with a .619 OPS, an OPS plus of 74. The only season in which he's had an OPS plus over 100 was back in 2021 when he was just in the big leagues for 29 games that year. Keibert Ruiz has not been an above-average major league hitter yet. And the only issue with that coming from the catcher position is that he is bad defensively. Keibert Ruiz is probably the worst defensive catcher in all of baseball at this point in time. In each of the last few seasons, while he did take a step up from 2022 going into 2023, where he did get that extension, his numbers were pretty good overall. He had 18 home runs in that year. But this past year, he had 13 home runs and a little bit less plate appearances, I might add. But his slugging was down tremendously, by the way, by nearly 50 points. His on base was down by, again, nearly 50 points. And his batting average was down by nearly 30 points. This all added up into a pretty mediocre season for Keibert Ruiz again. And he's on a 6-year extension, right? Or really an 8-year deal worth $50 million that has team options for 2031 and in 2032. The Nationals better hope that he's going to be the franchise guy. But I'm not willing to say that he is going to be the man moving forward. I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say he's going to be the franchise guy all the way through 2030. I can't believe in it at this point. In fact, one of my biggest needs this offseason was to go and address that backup catcher spot. Go for a veteran. Go and try and sign Travis d'Arnaud. Go and try and sign, name that James McCann, who is a solid defensive catcher and has at times looked pretty good offensively, which, by the way, I think he's still a free agent. So Keibert Ruiz is one of the biggest question marks, as far as I'm concerned, heading into this season. And I don't know if you can just sit here and say that he is going to be the answer for all your issues at that defensive catcher position. He's not good defensively. He's a switch hitting catcher who hasn't provided all too much power. And for some people who say, well, if he doesn't work out behind the dish, play him over at first base. Guys, he is not a first baseman. Again, let's talk about Dominic Smith, someone who has played first base with this team in the past, someone who has been solid defensively over at first, but did not get the job done offensively. Does this ring a bell? In 2023 with the Nationals, hit a .692 OPS. Dominic Smith talking about. He was a Gold Glove caliber first baseman that season as well. A .692 OPS, had 12 home runs and 46 RBIs. Keibert Ruiz from the catcher position over the last few seasons. He had a .619 OPS this past year. Had 13 home runs. And we ran Dominic Smith out of town. He was not good offensively. So even if you think that Keibert Ruiz could be a first baseman down the line, number one, I bet you he's not going to be a good defensive first baseman. And number two, offensively speaking, for that first base position, he would not get the job done. And this would be a disaster for this team if they had Keibert over at first. It's not going to work out long term. If anything, Keibert Ruiz has to stick at that catcher position. He's going to have to show that he has improved defensively. He's going to have to show that he does have power from hopefully both sides of the plate. He's going to have to get on base more. He's going to have more extra base hits. And he's just going to have to be a smart overall baseball player, in which at times we have not seen that consistency from him. And I think that is going to be probably your second biggest question heading into 2025. But in my opinion, one of the biggest question marks for the Nationals is, will they stick with a 5-man rotation? They have got a lot of pitchers in this building, a lot of starting pitchers, I may add as well. And if you look at it, especially with some guys coming off IR, will they stick with a 5-man rotation? That is going to be a huge question for this team. I'll answer that after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team like the Wizards for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. And the app is so easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. The other night, I was watching the Wizards and I saw Bilal Coulibaly going off. So, of course, I hit the over on his points for the next game, and that hit. And, of course, the rebounds as well. The Wizards, they're a frisky watch, but they are kind of fun. And really, you can get some action with FanDuel. So right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now we get back into it, answering some of the biggest questions for Nationals pitchers and catchers. We are just a handful of days from them reporting to West Palm Beach. You'll be seeing the Nationals Twitter and Instagram posting all sorts of content for your Nationals, and you'll have baseball here in the near future. So my big question for this offseason, and what I want to get into in this segment, is will they stick with a 5-man rotation? Looking at it right now, this is just a rough draft. You've got Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, DJ Hers, Trevor Williams, Michael Soroka, Mitchell Parker, and of course the new Japanese lefty that we just signed to a 2-year deal. That's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And if you count that up, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys who could be starters. And not even to mention Cade Cavalli at some point in time, and also Josiah Gray coming off Tommy John surgery. That's 9 guys, including the 2 that are likely going to be on the IL to start the season. And Cade Cavalli, who will probably be down in AAA, getting some innings there, working his way up into AAA and then into the majors. Then also Josiah Gray, you might see him later on this season, but you also might not at this point. I think at some point earlier than September, you're going to see a 6-man rotation for this team. I think there are too many guys at this point that you just simply cannot roll with a 5-man rotation. There is a real possibility on opening day, Mitchell Parker may not be on the opening day roster. And he looked good last year. Like, this reminds me of the Miami Marlins of the last few seasons in a sense. I think we will be a lot better than the Marlins, obviously sitting here today. But if you remember, they have a ton of pitching prospects and a lot of guys like Yuri Perez over the last few seasons. He couldn't crack the opening day roster even though he was ready for it, but it was simply because they had way too many pitchers. And this is a good problem to have, by the way. But if I'm the Nationals, with this young staff, trying to space them out a little bit and save some innings overall, why not go to a 6-man rotation? I think you have 6 potential legit starters in here. Now, let's say this, because I do think that's a far-fetched act to do. Like, I don't think the Nationals are going into the season planning for a 6-man rotation early on in the season. But I think Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, and Trevor Williams, those are your locks. Like, they're going to be in the rotation. Michael Soroka as well. I think he's going to start out the year in the rotation. But Soroka's one of those guys who, again, last year, as a starter with the White Sox, again, the worst team of all time, he looked awful as a starter. then got pushed to the bullpen and looked really good. Do the Nationals think that that's going to be the case this year? Do they believe that their new lefty from Japan, he could step in and be that guy for this organization and be that 5-starter? Maybe. It sounds as if he's going to be a bullpen guy to begin, but he's also a starter, and the Nationals have acknowledged that they think that he could start down the line. Trevor Williams, he has also come out of the bullpen at points. I think the locks that should happen at this point, it's Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Trevor Williams, DJ Hers in that mix as well, and then Michael Soroka. I don't know what they do with Mitchell Parker. I think they at first start him down in AAA and work his way back up and kind of see what happens with Soroka and as well as Williams if they struggle, or DJ Hers maybe, and then you make a decision then. But this is going to be a big storyline to follow. And then also, when Cade Cavalli is healthy, what do they do with him? What will they do with Cade Cavalli, who again was a top 100 prospect entering this season, or entering the last few seasons, really? This is going to be a very interesting storyline to watch. And I would not be surprised, again, if they roll with that 6-man rotation. I think it makes sense. You take an arm away from the bullpen for that roster spot, but I do believe that it's worth it. And you might get yourself in trouble, but this is what you have to do, in my opinion. This is when you have to have and try to think ahead and have that 6-man rotation, take an arm from the bullpen and use it in the rotation. And I think that could be an overall good thing for this organization. Because of those 6 guys, someone is, number one, going to get hurt inevitably. It always happens. It's baseball. It is a marathon. You're going to cramp up. You're going to do whatever. We all know it. It's baseball. It's going to happen again. But this is going to be one of those storylines where I think it's kind of a slept-on one. You could see a 6-man rotation at some point, maybe even as early as June. So don't be surprised if that happens. Another big question for the Nationals pitchers and catchers reporting in just a handful of days. Who will be the Nats closer at this point? Is it Jorge Lopez? Is it going to be Jose Ferrer? My answer today is Jose Ferrer, but I'm not 100% sold on it. Like, I think this guy is going to be the best reliever that we have, but similar to guys in the past like Hunter Harvey this past year. While he was inconsistent at times, I think overall with his stuff, he was probably the Nationals' best reliever. Like, yes, Kyle Finnegan was good and he got the job done, but I think when it's all said and done, Hunter Harvey was more talented. I think Hunter Harvey had the higher ceiling than Kyle Finnegan. I think Jose Ferrer is in that point right now. But the thing with Hunter Harvey is, as soon as he got into that 9th inning, he imploded. It's like a mental hurdle that these guys have to get over. And does Jose Ferrer have that ability to kind of get over that and pitch into the 9th inning and get the close and the save for this team? Those are questions that you're going to have to ask. But I do believe the Nationals will try that out for him because he's got the best stuff. I think he's got the highest ceiling as well for this back end of the bullpen. But if the Nationals went out there and tried to sign someone in free agency to be that closer, whether it's Kyle Finnegan to bring him back or Kenley Jansen, or someone of that nature, I think that'd be a really smart decision for the Nationals moving forward. Also, another question. Let's get back into the catchers real quick. Who will win the Nats' backup catcher job? You would think that it's going to be Riley Adams because he's really good offensively and, well, pretty good. I mean, he's been overall better, in my opinion, at the plate than Keibert Ruiz the last few seasons. But Drew Millis is the best defensive catcher that we have. So I think it comes down to this question for Davey Martinez, Mike Rizzo, and the decision makers for this team. Who's going to provide more value? I don't think Riley Adams' offense is going to put a huge kind of cloud over what Drew Millis does defensively. I think the Nationals are going to try and really reach into their bag and say, what will bring more value? And I think Drew Millis defensively, having that second catcher, kind of to help the rotation and also just be there because, again, you need some better defense behind the plate. You need someone who is going to be there when Keibert Ruiz, quite frankly, is not getting the job done. I want to say it's Drew Millis, and I think by the end of this year, we will be saying that it is Millis. But Riley Adams is also in the conversation as well because he is better defensively than Keibert Ruiz. Not by much, but he is better. And he is better offensively as well. But Keibert Ruiz is going to be your starter. He's going to be the guy on opening day. And I think right now, the Nationals should favor Drew Millis. I think that would be the smart decision if it were up to me. Now, what do the Nationals decide to do? Do they try and go out and sign a backup catcher? Do they shock the world and have Caleb Lomavita come up from low A and make opening day roster and be the backup catcher? That is 99% chance not going to happen. But let's say they do it. Let's say they want that. Let's say they think he's ready defensively. Let's say they think he's ready offensively as well. Who knows at this point in time? But I think these are all storylines that you're going to want to watch. Next, let's get into this. We mentioned Cade Cavalli. This is one of my big questions now. We've got a loaded starting rotation. Your bullpen is meh. Cade Cavalli did not really pitch at all over the last 2 seasons. Could he be moving to the bullpen? We'll discuss that after this. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Let's answer the question that I just posed. Cade Cavalli is an interesting case right now. I think at this point in time, though, he might just be a bullpen guy. Maybe it's just February 10th. Maybe I just have not seen him, and I haven't seen him in a while. Do you have faith, though, in Cade Cavalli coming back, pumping 99 to 100, getting a ton of swings and misses and strikeouts? I don't know at this point. I can't say confidently that he is going to be a starting pitcher for this team moving forward. And can you? I don't think that's really that possible at this point in time. I think at some point this year, you will see Cade Cavalli, but not in the starting role. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be just performance-based, by the way. I think the Nationals might simply have no choice. Again, looking at this rotation right now, it's pretty stacked with young talent. Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, DJ Hers, Trevor Williams, a veteran who's going to be in the rotation, Soroka. You also have Josiah Gray coming back from the IL eventually. You've got Travis Sikora down the line. You've got Harleen Susanna coming down the line. They have got a pretty decent staff right now with some more prospects to come. I would not be surprised if the Nationals say Cade Cavalli is going to be a bullpen piece. Whether they're going to try him out to be a closer, whether he's just going to be a normal 7th inning guy, whatever it is, don't be surprised if the Nationals try and push Cavalli to be a closer or something of that nature down the road. Now, I do think they will try him out to be a starter because, again, this guy is very talented, and if he's 100% healthy and back to his ways, then he should easily crack the top 5 of this rotation come opening day. But those are a lot of question marks. Number one, he has not pitched in 2 years, basically. He had a few starts down to the minors last year for rehab and then got shut down again. He battled the flu at one point last year. Like, Cade Cavalli is one of the greatest wonders entering spring training at this point. We don't know where he stands in his rehab. We don't know where he stands in the Nationals. Are they thinking that he's going to be part of this future rotation? We don't know at this point until we actually see him pitch. Will he still be pumping high 90s? Will he still have a devastating breaking ball? We don't know these answers at this point. But my kind of hot take right now, I'm not going to go fully all in on it, but don't be surprised if he is a bullpen piece come the middle of this summer. But I do want to get into this just real quick. When does baseball season start for you? Baseball season for me started today. The Super Bowl is over. Football season is gone. Birds are out and chirping. The sun is shining here in DC, although we're about to get a couple inches of snow in the next few days, which sucks, by the way. Kind of puts a wet blanket on all things Washington Nationals related, if you ask me. But baseball is here. The season has started. What says you? I want to know. Let me know. You can tweet at me at RyanClary11. You can drop a comment in the YouTube section, and I'll try to get to all of them as baseball season again has come, and we are ready to watch the Washington Nationals in just a few days. We'll discuss plenty more of spring training topics as we get back to you tomorrow. We'll discuss that and more on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.